you shifting gears and you working on something that is working out, it's a better deal all around, for everybody. And you're going to be more productive. You're not giving something up. You're gaining something by it.
Even if it's your sanity and your personal time.
Yeah.
And like, really. And that is, and when you do come from that place of abundance, it's amazing. Like if you come from that place of like, giving back, it's like paying it forward, and that place of abundance, it does come back even in just like your own peace of mind.
Welcome to the Real Estate Mindset Podcast, hosted by Eric Nelson and brought to you by Wild Oak Capital. Eric is a real estate investor, business owner, and performance coach. Throughout this series, Eric explores the mindset behind why certain investors are so successful and how we can learn from their achievements and failures. Eric asks the tough questions around the habits, discipline, mindset, and more required to achieve the most ambitious goals. Thank you for being here and enjoy the show.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Real Estate Mindset Podcast. This is your host, Eric Nelson, and I'm super excited for our guests today. This is Bettin and Christina Rinderle. Thank you both for being here.
We're great to be here, Eric. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, so I do this every time. Can you guys give me your background, where you're from, what you used to do, and then what got you into real estate? So Chris, we'll let you go first.
I grew up in Denver, Colorado, in a real estate family. My mother was in the business, and my father eventually joined her. And I said I would never, ever, ever get into real estate as a result. And so over time, I had a need at one point in time. I had a son who had some pretty serious medical issues, actually. And I needed a job that didn't have a ceiling for income, candidly. And real estate was something I knew, if you work really hard at it and you got a little luck in there, had some success, that there wasn't much of a ceiling. And so that is why I got into real estate, to pay for his medical bills. And you know what? I found getting into it that I really enjoyed it, and I've carried on ever since. That was almost 20 years ago.
Wow. I did not know that backstory. So thank you for sharing. Thanks for being vulnerable. That's, first of all, really noble. I mean, that's really cool. You kind of found that and went for it. And then you got lucky because you ended up liking it, right? So that's
it all worked out. It did, to pay the bills, and it worked out to be a great career.
That's kind of the dream, right? So cool. What about you, Christina?
Well, my degree is actually in environmental science, and that was really my passion. And then moved to Durango in the late 90s and got involved with, I worked for an environmental consulting company, and that was great. It was a really huge honor and learned quite a bit. And then as that company kind of moved on, I worked for doing infill development projects. And so the first project I worked on was renovating the historic office building downtown, and then worked for developers that were building a LEED certified or LEED standard building next door. And so it was really a cool philosophy of revitalization of downtown space that was underutilized, and creating that live work vibrancy, because the more people that live in a downtown, work in a downtown, the more vibrant those shops are, those restaurants are. So I really got involved working for them. And then when the recession hit, they weren't doing any more projects. And then I started working, just kind of fell into more of the real estate realm, and then do both commercial and residential real estate currently.
Very cool. So I keep going on mute because he's mowing the yard outside my house.
Of course.
But that's kind of part of podcasting. So truthfully, I mean, I kind of hope that you have to hear that. I mean, might even pick this up, but that's okay. Cool. Well, we'll just roll with it. I mean, lawn mowing is part of life. So
also whining dog in the background.
Yeah, we have a whining dog in our background.
Oh, perfect. I mean, that's real life, right? So we'll just carry on. So let's start kind of separately. So I know you guys both work Durango Land and Homes, Chris, but is more of your time in Durango Premier Vacation Rentals? Is that what it's called, or just Premier Vacation Rentals? And can you kind of talk about that, and then how you started that, and then kind of what you do now?
Premier Vacation Rentals Group was started in the height of the Great Recession, and I was in real estate, but prospects for a lot of folks that were in that business really declined rapidly, as everyone probably remembers. And I was, really confronted with, what am I going to do here? Income is dropping, bills aren't dropping, those kinds of things. And I had a background in lodging and hospitality. That's what I'd done out of college. That's what my degrees were in. And we had a need in this community in Durango for good lodging property managers that did short-term vacation rentals. There weren't a ton of them, and the ones that were out there at the time were tougher to refer our business to. And so it was just an opening that we saw a need for and decided to fill. And originally, the intent wasn't necessarily to create some large business out of it, candidly, but it did evolve by word of mouth to become, a business now that we're operating in about 13 different cities, including Durango, and we hope to grow it even farther.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really cool lesson. So it's basically you taking the time to say, okay, what is a need? And then how can I fill that need? And then if you do a good job, word of mouth is just so powerful. So really appreciate you sharing. So can you tell a little bit more about, you said 13 cities, are they kind of near here, Southwest area? And then do you have a handle on a ballpark number of vacation rentals you run?
Yeah, it's somewhat regional. I mean, we're in the Four Corner states and a number of the cities that you probably imagine being tourist destinations like Santa Fe and Scottsdale, and we're also in places like Denver and Vail and Steamboat and places like that. We're managing somewhere in the neighborhood of just shy of 400 units right now across those markets, and started with just a handful just 10 years ago, and so our goal is to grow that really horizontally across multiple markets, and then do a really great job inside of each one of those markets, so that, like you said, the word of mouth aspect of our marketing campaign is the most powerful thing. And to answer your earlier question, I do spend a lot more of my time than I once did running that company versus really working in real estate. But Christina and I also have the real estate company, and I still am the managing broker and employing broker for that office. So still bifurcate my time a bit there.
Awesome. All right, Christina, can you talk about Durango Lennon Homes and your
Yeah.
role there? I mean, I hope that wasn't a jab, because I know that you were the managing broker, but it's seemingly with so many vacation rentals and you going, I was kind of guessing that your time was a little bit more there. But anyway, hopefully that didn't come off that way. But Christina, can you talk about your time in Durango Lennon Homes, and then, how that came to be? So you guys took that company over from another local group, right? Can you explain what
Yeah.
happened there? And then are you happy with that transition?
Sure, sure. Well, one of the things, Chris and I was working at a firm that had 40 plus brokers, and Chris was working as the managing broker up at Purgatory Resort and overseeing all of their development there. And Chris kept saying, we should have our own company. We should, do this. And I kept thinking, gosh, I'm working in my, it's basically the difference working in your business than on your business. And I was very focused on working in the business and really not, just doing my thing. And then, he kept saying, well, let's do this. Let's do this. And I'm like, yeah. And then we were actually approached by Joe Bertoni and his wife Heidi, and they had created Durango Land and Homes years ago, and it was a good fit. And they said, they were kind of looking to do a change and make a change at the time, and approached us, and it really was the perfect fit, because for me it was less of a barrier to create the all of the steps, and it just worked out great. And the thing that Chris and I both love is, being a local independent business. That's something that's core, and something to my core, in my passion and my belief, like serving in our community on city council and as prior mayor. I really believe in the local independent companies and businesses here. And so, because we're not part of a franchise, we can kind of create our own rules and how we run the business. And so, instead of paying a certain percentage to a franchise, for example, we donate a portion of all of our proceeds to local nonprofits and charities. And so we say we're a customer service organization that happens to sell real estate, and that's what we really pride ourselves in.
Cool. There's a lot of stuff in there that we can kind of dig in. So I've known this about you guys. You both give back to the community in so many ways. I was gonna wait to touch on this, but you've both been on city council, so thanks for your service to this amazing city. Durango is arguably one of the better places on the planet to live. So thank you for that. And then what do you think it is? I mean, what's the reason that you guys give back to your community? I mean, where do you think that comes from?
Yeah.
You
I
know,
know
I
it's an
think,
unusual
I
question. Again,
think,
it's like a
no, I think it's a
mindset
good
podcast. So,
question.
I mean,
It's a good
might as well
question.
ask, right?
It's a good question. And I think my best answer for it really was that as Christina and I were coming up in this industry, we had some pretty good role models. And I think, one of them was a company here locally that Christina was referring to, the Wells Group, and John Wells and Jim Watkins, the people that owned and ran that company. They had that as a value system, so we watched that up close, and it was one of the neatest things about their company, that you really felt like, that one of their values was you had to serve on a local not-for-profit board. If you were going to be part of their organization, you were highly encouraged to do that. You were highly encouraged to, donate time and money to those organizations in the community. And then they had this fund that their brokers contributed to, that everyone would then vote on where those funds went. And so when Christina and I started our company, it was just a natural transition to sort of carry that torch forward, and that's one of the things we really loved about their company. So we thought, well, let's integrate that into ours. And we do have a little bit lower cost basis in terms of other types of brokerages. So we're really able to do quite a bit in that regard, where our philosophy is, there's a lot of folks that come and ask for things in that community and need donations and support. And our philosophy is, we'd like to not ever have to turn anybody down. If they have a legitimate need, we'd like to have funds available to support them. And we've been able to achieve that over the, I guess, 6 years we've been doing this. So.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
been really fun, and it gives us a sense of pride and ownership. And I think it also inspires, I think, other people, when we're talking to our clients and we say, here's what we're involved in, and people that are new to the area, say, what's your passion? And, what do you like to get involved in? and
Do you
and
just say
so,
everything? Do you answer
yeah, everything.
everything?
Exactly. And then see what's a good fit. And some people are really interested in kids. Some people are really passionate about pets and, the Humane Society and whatever that might be. We say, here's some causes, and let me help connect you to the folks that can, get you involved and be a part of the community.
It's like a pillar of your life, right? It's one of those components. I think as you mature in your life, you start to think outside of yourself and think, how can I help my community? And as I was having those conversations with myself, like, what am I going to do? It wasn't easy, honestly, to figure out what organizations were a good fit, or who could use whatever skill set I brought to the table. And so what we kind of try and do is help people get opened up to all of the, in Durango, there's literally hundreds of
There's like over 400
organizations,
nonprofits here.
that do that work. And we try to introduce people to them so that maybe they find a good fit and they can contribute, because we know people want to do that. It's part of their kind of need as a human and in a community to contribute on that level.
I completely agree. So this is kind of funny. I mean, I've experienced this personally. So, I had this desire to give back. So I reached out to Christina and I said, hey, looking to give back. And it was like days later, you introduced me to someone. Now I'm still on that board of the nonprofit. So you guys are connectors in that way. It's really cool. So I can say personally, what you're saying is absolutely accurate. And it's way cool that you have that mindset to give back. So again, thanks for doing so much for our community. So I'm going to shift a little bit. Can we talk about your personal portfolio? What are you guys investing in? It doesn't have to be real estate necessarily, but I think my understanding is you have some real estate holdings. Can you describe the markets you invest in, what you're looking for, and kind of what does that look like?
Sure. Yeah. So we have for us, there's definitely things that you have a little bit, people are usually is interested in investing in the stock market and whatnot. And there's certainly a component of that I think is valid for people based on where they are in their lives. For me, I like to, see and touch things and have a more tangible, thing, as far as, the market can fluctuate. The stock market can fluctuate based on the whim of whatever political statement sometimes is made that day. And to me, when you look at, real estate, you can rent it, you can sell it, you can touch it, you see it, you can improve it. And I love that part. And so we have holdings in Durango primarily, but also in Santa Fe, Denver, and Ouray. And so I think, with that, it's things that we know, like markets that we really know and we're comfortable with and familiar with, and places that we like to go also. And so one of the things that I think Chris is great to touch on is kind of how we leverage those investments as far as, with short-term rental, vacation rentals. And I think that's something that I think your listeners might be really interested in, because, the nice thing about our investments is that we're able to go to those places. And certainly we have some in Durango that we use, or when friends or family come visit, we can block it out and have them. But we're really talking about, like, how can we leverage those to be places we like to go and enjoy as well.
Yeah, I think one of the keys to our whole strategy, if you will, and I don't know if it's that involved to call it a strategy, but it is, we try to do what we know. It very often there's so many different things you can invest in out in the world, and I've really just tried to stay in my own comfort zone. And we feel like we have an understanding of that type of investment real estate, and as such, that's where we focus a lot of our energy. I mean, we try and dabble in stock market investments and mutual funds and those kinds of things. But most of our holdings truly are in real estate. And I think the other piece that Christina is alluding to is just the use aspect of it. That there's this additional tangible benefit to the type of real estate we invest in, which is that we can go and enjoy it and have fun in those places and really, have a good experience with them.
And I think one of the other things that, Chris, if you touch on, is kind of, when people are thinking about investing and they say, oh, well, here's, if I buy it for this, the real estate prices are high in some of these resort communities, and here's maybe what I can rent it for. But then when you talk about what you can depreciate and what your internal rate of return ends up being, maybe you could touch on that a little bit for Eric's listeners.
Eric just got taken
Sorry.
over at the interview.
No. I'm just the interviewer. You guys you're the reason you're here. That's what listeners want to hear. You guys.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting, because as you look at your investment opportunities out in the world and various perspectives on that, often in real estate, we'll run into clients that say, that sounds good. I'm going to go talk to my financial advisor. And then they go talk to financial advisor, and the financial advisor all of a sudden has some stock they want to sell them. And now that's not a good idea. And oftentimes, one of the things I think a lot of folks fail to consider about a real estate investment is that asset working for you. And it's really just leveraging, especially if you have a loan and you can qualify for the leverage on the property. It's you have a cash investment, you have someone else's money, the bank or lender or whoever's providing that part of the picture. And then you have this third party who is renting that property from you as the income source, paying off that note essentially. And so your real true investment can be just that initial down payment essentially. And if you're really good at picking them, sometimes they really do perform on that level. And then you add other things like depreciation into the mix and the other tax benefits that are relevant to it. And I think a lot of the picture of the performance of that type of real estate goes unseen when you're just looking at it on the surface, and you realize the power of all those pieces put together. The return on investment is actually, it's certainly really competitive to my investment portfolio in stocks and bonds, but maybe I'm just not good at picking them. But certainly the returns have been better over my lifetime for sure.
No, and we can dive really deep here. I mean, there's no reason to kind of hold back. So the listeners on this show most likely are going to be somewhat sophisticated in this realm. So, if you felt the need to hold back, don't, because I feel the exact same way. I mean, internal rate of return at the end of the day, especially when you talk about a 1031, becomes pretty powerful. So I completely agree with you. And then you can leverage lots of ways, but it's pretty cut and dry in real estate, in my opinion. It's something you can wrap your head around, exactly what you said. You can take a little bit of your own money and use a lot of other people's money, meaning the bank or someone else, and get a much bigger asset than you could have taking that same amount in the stock market, right? So completely agree with what you said. And then Christina, you touched on internal rate of return, and that's pretty powerful. I mean, when you exit, that's really when you see the returns in their entirety of that particular project. And maybe you hold it forever. Maybe it's a legacy property. But the point is, it's possible, absolutely, in my opinion, to get very competitive returns and you have this tangible asset, like you were saying. So, I could go on for days. I love real estate. I didn't mean to take that over. But if you want to dive in more, feel free, but I completely agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, I would just say that, we do a lot of modeling for our customers. I specialize in the second home and vacation rental market for obvious reasons. One, I used to work for a resort real estate company, and that's what we sold. But also being in the vacation rental industry as an operator, we work with a lot of clients who are evaluating that particular type of purchase. And one of the interesting parts about it is when you really put all the math together, even if the property requires you to put more money into it on an annual basis. And you hear this a lot from clients. It's like, well, I don't want to put any more cash in it. It's got a cash flow. And I'll say, well, let's look at the math, because it might cash flow, and that would be great. And they'll say, well, I want to put more cash into it so it does cash flow. But when you compare leveraging the lowest down payment that is reasonable in that type of purchase to putting more cash into that vehicle, even if putting the more cash in keeps you above that line, of having to put additional cash every year in, your return on investment actually benefits from the higher leverage point. And it's substantial, so a cash purchase versus somewhere 20% down, 80% loan to value, you're looking at maybe double the return on investment with a lot less of your money. And I think, candidly, I'm sure everybody in your show that listens to this understands that, because they wouldn't be listening to the show otherwise, but most people do not. And it's an education process that we go through a lot. And then once you see the magic of that in your own life, whether you do, liquidate that at some point to see that return, or like for us, it is a long-term endeavor. We look at these purchases as very long term, not just the 10-year horizon. We look at them as the sort of forever. Maybe somebody's inheriting that property over time. Then it's really powerful.
Yeah, completely agree. I mean, in every way. So that's cool. And I'm a big math person, so maybe we can share models.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's really cool. So thanks for sharing about your personal stuff. I know that can be kind of hard to let go, but I mean, I invest here in Durango as well. I do like other markets for different reasons. My wife and I have a handful of investments here, and it's part of what you're saying. We believe in this market. Lots of people will kind of coach you away from investing in appreciation, but we kind of love it here. We just love to have it in our back door. So, there's just so many strategies. There's so many ways to make money in real estate, and it can also be enjoyable. For me, my IRA is probably the least enjoyable thing on the planet. I just don't understand it, and I don't really like it, and so real estate, I can actually wrap my head around. And so again, coming back full circle, is something you can touch, something that you can improve. Very, very cool. So again, I'll kind of shift gears here. I'd love you guys, if you could, to plug the video series that you do. I can't remember what it's called. There's like a downtown
around in Durango.
Yeah. So we're gonna I don't think I have very many listeners in Durango, but what we're gonna do is get a bunch of people to hear about our town. So very cool. Is it okay if I plug that?
I would love that.
Okay,
great.
cool. So tell us about the video and the series. I've watched a handful, and they're so good. So let's hear about it.
Thanks. Well, one of the things that we love to do, and kind of being part of this, community, and wanting to showcase all the nonprofits that we talked about, we're basically, we have, we call it our round in Durango. And so we have a round of drinks with at a local restaurant to showcase that restaurant or bar. And then we always feature a nonprofit there too. So, and we try to have some synergy, because a lot of times that nonprofit will be really aligned with, a donor or something like that at a local, an owner of a local restaurant. So we try and pair that, so there's some synergy there. But the idea is really for our listeners to delve in deep, get to know, a great place to eat or have a drink, that and get to know the owners of that establishment, and know that they're part of that community, and then also really focus on that nonprofit organization, so they learn a little bit more about the community. So we wanted to make it fun, and it's been really great. Chris had the idea to do it, and I loved it, because it is really fun. So we tried, in normal times we do one a month, And then we hadn't done one during COVID, and we just did our first round of Durango, drinking wine from a straw underneath a mask at our local winery.
Nice. Just went
Yeah.
downstairs, huh? Went downstairs to the
That's
winery.
right. That's right.
Yeah, the winery below our office. It was perfect. It was a perfect location.
Cool. Well, yeah, we'll put that in the show notes, and then we can plug those videos for you guys. So anyone
Great.
who wants to check out Durango a little bit more.
Yeah, it
Okay,
gives
so
people it gives
what was
people
that?
a really nice way to see some of the different restaurants and other opportunities in the community. That's the idea. It's just expose these folks to as wide of an audience as we can get. And it started pretty small, but I mean, we get a lot of views on those things now. It really is cool how many people pick up on it. So
And
Cool.
it's fun, like when we were, with El Moro, learning the history of the tavern and the fight between, the sheriff and the marshal. It's really such a cool, little history of the town, and learning about, the Strader Hotel and all the guests that have been hosted there over time. And it's a really neat segment, and like little peephole into the deeper dive into Durango's history.
Very cool. I like it. Okay, so again, I'll shift gears here a little bit. Can you guys talk to your experience in the difference between residential and commercial real estate, and then maybe even just lending or what people are looking for? But it's cool that you both sell both, right? I mean, you both work in both industries, and so it's nice to be able to look at someone who does both and say, okay, what are kind of the main differences if someone's looking for one or the other, or again, financing, that type of stuff. If you could touch on that, that'd be great.
you should take that one.
Okay. So one of the things I love working in both, and some of the interesting things is sometimes I'll have someone come in and they'll be looking at commercial space, where I feel like commercial space is very transactional. They'll be looking maybe to grow their business, and maybe it's an owner user also. So I have a lot of folks that are saying, well, we want to open our business in Durango. Show us, what's available and what options we have for either rent or lease. And so I can help them with both of those. But I find those to be, and especially with the investor model, a lot of folks are looking at, what is that cap rate? And, in Durango, as much as anyone that, you're not getting the cap rates that you would in maybe in Albuquerque or Phoenix or someplace like that, where you have, maybe lower price points and about the same amount of rent. But here, you also touched on the appreciation that you get from living in a beautiful mountain town. And so I think you have to help some of those investors look at, okay, here, because they're looking at just the transactional numbers initially. But then you have to also get the emotional appeal. I'm like, hey, here's where, this is a part of history. This is a part of historic downtown Durango. And this might be the last developable piece of land in, the heart of downtown, or whatever that might be, and get them excited about those things. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But I'd say, overall, the biggest difference between commercial and residential is commercial seems to be, more transactional, fact-based, whereas the residential component is more relationship-based. And I think that's something that, I really enjoy quite a bit. So both sides of that, really, it's almost like left brain, right brain in some ways, on those type of things. And then you've worked a lot in the kind of bigger projects up by Purgatory and some of the bigger real estate development pieces.
Well, I just think it's funny because Christina's the reason she's in commercial and residential is she's a diversifier, like she is all about the rainy day situation. And if she will work in any sector that has the potential to perform when the other one's not, and that sometimes is the case. Like residential real estate right now is just going, it's an unheard of territory in our market. There's some really, hyper growth going on there right now. Whereas commercial, because of COVID, is looking kind of bleak right now. And I think Christina's whole thought process there is that, I got to stay in both because you never know what's going to happen. She comes from kind of a mentality about that scarcity, and I make fun of her a lot because I'll see these deals come across my desk that are like, it's like $400 because she put a lease together, and I realize how much that takes, to just as much as it would take to do a high-end real estate transaction in a residential market for like 700,000 times the income, but she's like, just stays the course. And then it's interesting because by doing that, her customer base broadens. and she starts to get the clients that are coming into the commercial market who then want to buy residential real estate. So she's always pointing out to me, hey, I just sold this house, and they originally were a client that just rented this office space for $300 a month. And
Nice,
so
Christina,
it's
poking
cool.
back a little bit. That $400 turned into
Yeah,
quite a
It's
bit
yeah,
more.
cool,
yeah.
for those that are interested in being in the industry, it is a really cool thing. And the other cool thing about the commercial markets, if you're in the real estate business, is there's not many people that really specialize in that. It's a specialty. It takes a tremendous amount of knowledge to know what you're doing in that sector, and to be an expert, which you really have to be from an ethical and legal standing. And it's a good place to go if you want to rise above the competition in any particular market, because most of that market is going to go after that residential client, because it's kind of the bread and butter of where the market is. And, you'll find in like a Durango, a smaller community, there's probably only 6 brokers that really know a whole lot about commercial brokerage.
The fun part about, for me, with the commercial side of things, like you said, like I'll meet these different people that are coming into town, and they'll say, well, here's what we do, with different, their business, they'll have an app that they've developed, or they're working with the Economic Development Alliance or our SCAPE project for the accelerator program for entrepreneurs. And they'll say, yeah, we have this idea, and we just want this little small office, like 10 by 10 office. But then, as Chris mentioned, over time, those ideas grow, they're hiring more people. Those people are coming into the community. I get to meet them and kind of be their trusted point person and resource. And so I really enjoy that. And I love, in my way, I feel like I'm helping to support them and try and find a launch pad for their entrepreneurial endeavors, whatever they're thinking about doing. So that's been really fun for me. And I learn a lot. And then I'll say, oh, you're doing this. You know what? Actually, I have the marketing person that, has an office just down the hall. You guys should connect, because they'll help you launch your marketing. And that part I really love. I think when you look back historically on what, a realtor was supposed to be in the community, is it is that point person to connect you. Like, you're moving into the community, you don't know anybody, or maybe you do, maybe you've been here for a while, but you're like, oh, who are some resources for, like, remodeling, septic installations, kind of doing all the, engineering work, whatever that might be. I think your realtor traditionally should be that person that has all these people that can help connect you together. But I think the reputation that people have, or the thought process of what that person is, or what that, the connotation of the term there, and then what a realtor can be is really your trusted advisor, and helping you navigate, sometimes the biggest assets of your life, of your entire portfolio, and then helping connect you to whatever resources to help launch that.
I don't even know where to start, because there was so much good stuff you guys said there. But one thing I will say is, you're absolutely right that, the residential world, at least as my experience, is kind of emotion driven. And so you said that to try and bring some emotion to the commercial world is probably a challenge, because it's more transactional based. People are looking at the numbers differently, right? But it's also really important, like you said, Chris, to be an expert in that field, because I kind of agree, Christina. I mean, no offense to any realtor out there, but there is some bad connotation associated with some realtors, because, it can be as quick as I can get to the closing table type scenario, especially in bigger cities. I think you might suffer a little in a smaller town, but there's that kind of let's finish the deal, even if it's not the right house for you type thing. And I've noticed that you don't do that at all. I mean, and in fact, you're an expert in both, which is really cool. And then the other thing that I want to touch on is the connecting thing. So there's a handful of books that talk about being a connector and what it will gain you. And I know you're not doing it for any selfish reasons, but it's so cool that you do that, because when you connect people, it's so powerful. It's like, oh, I know this person over here that could help you, and you can help them, kind of do the whole thing. And then for our listeners, I do civil engineering. So we recently connected over septic engineering. That wasn't like a random thing.
Right.
But that's exactly it. So, you connected me with someone else, and it'll just continue to grow and help you in the long run. But all that said is, I appreciate that you guys are both professionals in both regard, and you're experts in any field that you work. And that's super important and super powerful. So yeah, we'll shift gears again. What I'm going to do is ask you both a series of questions. Take as many, as long as you want to answer each one, or as quick as you want. I mean, there's no pressure and there's no right answer, of course. So we'll flip flop who goes first. So the first question is, do you have a morning routine? And we'll let Chris go first.
Yes. I mean, I get up late. I don't subscribe to the early bird gets the worm philosophy that I know is popular among the successful set. And then, as late as I get up, whatever the sun tells my body to get up, that's when I'm popping out of bed. And then I pretty much pour right into the the day. I'm with my coffee doing my email. I have this system set up where I get all my email because I'm trying to run multiple companies at the same time. So I have this triage system where somebody actually looks at all my email before I get up and then triages all of it and just sends me the stuff that I really need to respond to, which I would recommend to anybody that's got a really full inbox and needs to respond to a lot of disparate things. And then what I'm trying really to do in that process is to get past the dreaded email suck, where you're just consumed by that. I found earlier in my career that, that could consume every part of my day, and get by that within an hour and a half and get on to substantive meetings and or projects that I'm trying to work on to move the ball forward in all of the various things that I pursue. And then I'm super rigid about my timeframes. I don't take lunches or really any breaks, but when 5-6 o'clock rolls around, I'm going to be spending time with my family and or working out with my son, and that's it. Watching basketball games, and my workday does not spill into the rest of my life. I try to set these huge boundaries. So that's my basic day.
Awesome. All right. Well, Christina, before I let you answer, I want to touch on two things you said there. One is asking for help. So there's a handful of things that I do horribly. One would be editing podcasts. So immediately, I just don't do it. Right. So sub that out. And then, other things that I don't do, I will hire a virtual assistant to help me with. So it's so incredible that you gave that tip of, if you're the type of person that has tons of email, or it doesn't matter if it's email, whatever it is, if you have tons of something that you either can't do or don't want to do, there's lots of help out there, and it can improve your efficiency so greatly. And then the other thing you said, and this might be the most important thing we've said this entire podcast, in my opinion, is huge boundaries. I have a similar belief systems. I work a lot of hours, but when I'm done, I'm done. Right. And the same goes for the morning. I cherish the time with my kids and my wife. And then at 8 o'clock, I'm running. Right. But it's so important to set those boundaries. So I'm really glad you said that. It's really cool. Okay, Christina, you have big shoes to fill now. So.
It's exactly the opposite.
Which is great because, I like that too, because it's to each their own. I mean, that's honestly kind of why I asked this question. But okay, Christina, so what is your morning routine?
So I get up really early. I definitely, sometimes I wake up at 4:35 and kind of my thing is I'll do my own version of my own email triage and see, okay, what's urgent? What do I have to respond to that day and that deadline? And then I try and get that done, then go work out. And if I don't get my workout in, I really do get grumpy. And I feel like if I don't do it first thing, then the day goes on and on and on. And then evening rolls around and we're hungry, want to spend time with family. And so if I do it first thing, it really, in the morning before I actually get to the office, it really reframes my brain. I feel like, endorphin wise, doing something for myself, it's my time. And it also helps me, I don't usually listen to music when I'm running or riding. It's kind of my quiet time where I can think about what's the day ahead and kind of envision the day. And I think the more I can kind of envision the flow of the day and set those intentions, the better that day, lines out to be. And so, I like to, triage emails, get a workout in, and then I'm usually, at the office by 8, and then kind of checking in on what the day looks like. And I like to start the week with who's under contract, what are the next steps, their dates and deadlines for the week, and then doing it just as much as me as for my clients to say, here are the next steps for this week. here are checklists. And I think it keeps me organized. And I think, for me, I never want a client to have to ask what's next. I want to be preemptively providing that information. So I love that. And then, one of the things that I definitely have a tendency to, what's the adage that, don't put off to, what you can get done today. And so I do pack my days pretty full. And that's something that I do need to set those little bit of those boundaries to have that time frame. But, I definitely, when we, Chris loves watching basketball with Dylan, and that's kind of their time together. And so, my favorite thing is to be cozy with them on the couch, and then but just have my laptop and kind of just be working on some projects and things to get ready for the next day ahead. But, it's interesting. It is something where I probably need to, figure out what that evening routine looks like a little bit more, but, and because Chris does have some very hard and fast boundaries, but a lot of it is like, I really enjoy my work. Like, I really don't see it as a chore, and I really like interacting. Like, one of the rules that I've had is that, if I have a client that is, a jerk or not respectful or whatnot, I will gracefully say it's probably not a fit and they should go work with someone else, because I really want to, the more, I love my job and I really want to love the people I'm working with. And so I do enjoy it. And so while some people say, oh, it's a chore, I can't believe you're, working on a Saturday or whatever that might be, I enjoy working with the people I'm working with. And I feel like a lot of them are appreciative and respectful. And that's been really fun for me.
Yeah. I love that they're opposite answers. I mean, that's really cool, because again, it's like to each their own. And I agree. I mean, if you don't like the basketball, who cares? Jump on and hang out, right? I mean, I'm sure he could be writing emails and pretend to cheer at the same time. And then I love that you said, if
I picked the wrong team by accident, though.
there you go. I love that you said that you let people go if you don't like working with them. So I know not everyone in the world has the ability to do that, but once you have it, or once you can, your life can be so much better to not work with people that kind of bring you down. So it's really cool that you kind of set that boundary as well.
That is definitely the boundary that I feel really comfortable now, because I think the more you push that aside of like, it's not a fit for them either. If it's adversarial, they're not enjoying that time with you, so I think the more you can, remove that and those obstacles, it opens up more opportunities to work with really great people. And I think that's something that, to learn that you're probably, if it's getting tense and adversarial, they're not enjoying that relationship either. And it's either sometimes a personality thing or, whatever that might be. And they might be better served working with someone else.
Very cool. I mean, I know Chris was kind of teasing you about the your mindset, but I think that's kind of an abundance mindset. Actually, I mean, if you have the ability to say, you know what, I'll make space for someone that I enjoy working with better, that's kind of an abundance thing. And then same goes for you guys giving back. I mean, that's the abundance mindset in its, purest form, is there'll be more, right? So I may come from this abundance place. I can give back time or monetarily, whatever it may be. So that's really cool. Okay, Christina, you're
on that. Actually, I think that's exactly what it is that, you mentioned it's not everybody can do that. And I think we think that most of our careers, we get to this point where, it's like we have to take everything in, but we forget the opportunity cost aspect of that. And I think that's what Christina's really tuning into there is just like, pretty much at all points in your career, if it's not working out, you shifting gears and you working on something that is working out, it's a better deal all around, for everybody. And you're going to be more productive. You're not giving something up. You're gaining something by it.
Even if it's your sanity and your personal time.
Yeah.
And like, really. And that is, and when you do come from that place of abundance, it's amazing. Like if you come from that place of like, giving back, it's like paying it forward, and that place of abundance, it does come back even in just like your own peace of mind.
Oh yeah, it always comes back. That's my opinion. I mean, it's always worth it to give some of your time or some of your money. And then one other thing before we move on that I wanted to say too is, you're right, Chris, that lots of people will say, when I make this, I'll be able to give back, or when I get here, I'll be able to give back. And I had a guest, actually the first podcast I think I shared with you, Christina, Daisy was saying that she will always give no matter where they are. Right. Yeah. So it doesn't matter what you're making. take a chunk of that and give it to whatever it is that your heart wants to give to, because there'll always be, oh, once I pay off the house, whatever it might be, any excuse,
Right.
it's so valuable to give along the way, and it will always come back. So really wanted to key on that before we moved on.
Yeah, absolutely. Chris and I are both firm believers in that too. And it's important, I think, we have to realize that we're all in it together, and you don't want to be somebody who's like, coming from that place of continued scarcity. And, there are resources available, and the more we give, the more we get. And we are both firm believers.
Yeah, it's our entire marketing plan. So I'm glad it works out that way.
So far it's working really well.
That's how we don't do any of the other traditional stuff.
We don't do print advertising.
Our
We don't
stuff
do
is
any
just
of
getting out there and
give to the community,
connecting and showing up in that way. And we sort of rationalized at the beginning that, the business part would come because of all of that. And not because it was a quid pro quo or anything, but all of that networking, all of that opportunity where people say, hey, we're doing something good for the community, that they'll see it and they'll respect it and they'll choose to work with us because they feel good about the fact that we're going to do that with what they contribute to our business.
So cool. That's really awesome. I mean, thank you guys for kind of setting that model, because I completely agree. Early on when I started my company, I have a small engineering company in town, as you guys know. I had this thought that, like a flashy website or like good marketing or something would work. And you both know my dad, and he was basically like, nope, just get out in the community, do a really high quality job, and word of mouth will propel. And I think to add to that is give back to your community as well, and he does, of course, you guys know too. So it was just the best advice. It's like, don't waste your money on a flashy website. It's nice to have one. More important is to do a good job and be a good person, and it'll always come back. So really, really kudos to you guys for doing that. Very cool. All right, Christina, you're going to be in the hot seat first on this one. So what books are you reading, or what books do you recommend for our audience?
Okay, so one of the things, so right now I'm reading, I have my like kind of comic relief. I love David Sedaris as comic relief. And for those who aren't familiar with him, he writes about, comical things that happen to him just in a day-to-day basis. And he's a very satirical writer, and I love it, and it makes me laugh. And so that's one of my fun things to read before I go to bed. It's just he has a collection of short stories or other things, and it's hilarious. And so, and I love that. And it puts me kind of in a great mindset before I go to sleep. But on a serious note, I'm just finishing Barack Obama's new book. And that, that was a big read. And he, I really love hearing his perspective of what was happening, both politically, personally, philosophically, energetically, all those things that he was going through, in his years in office. And I, regardless of anyone's political belief or whatnot, anybody who's in that office and is dealing with so much, it really gives you some interesting insight, and then puts things in perspective of like, yeah, my schedule is, I think I'm busy.
Yeah, it's a definition of time blocking. Yeah. Wow. What a good tip.
Yeah. And then you're reading quite a bit at the same time, right?
Oh yeah, it's my turn.
Yeah.
I'm rereading Jared Diamond's Guns, Germs, and Steel, and which is just this is the kind of stuff I read. I somehow shifted to nonfiction years ago, and this book is it's about 20 years old, but it's just a book about how did various societies succeed over others over millennia, and what were the conditions geographically and sociologically and scientifically that caused those differences. And it's super fascinating stuff. It's kind of wonky, but I love that kind of thing. I just finished reading every Native American history book I could get my hands on over the last year, and after getting through all of that stuff, I went even farther back in history and trying to get that piece. It's funny because when I was a kid, I really, history class was not my jam, as I say, and for some reason it's really appealed to me later in life, having perspective on how do we get here.
Love it. Thanks for sharing those. Those are awesome. The problem with this question is every time I have a longer list of books to read, but
yeah,
right, I mean, that's a good thing. Christina, I don't actually, my personal jam, Chris, is, like self-help books. I just kind of I like that right now in this stage of life. I have the belief that likely, that might shift. That's just what I'm reading right now. I like Bill Bryson though, for that reason. He makes me laugh. I think he's hilarious. But I just, right now I'm honing on that, but I know that there's parts of life where you're going to find what works and what fits. And so I love this question. So I appreciate you guys being open and honest. Okay. So the next one is, do you have a coach, or have you had a coach or mentor? And was it worth, the time and investment, that type of thing? I know you touched on the Wells group, but beyond that, have you guys experienced that type of thing? And Chris, we'll let you go first.
I've never had a formal coach that I hired for any of the business practices. I've had tons of mentors over the course of my career. Early in my career, I worked for larger corporations and always had a boss, and I was fortunate, to have some great ones. I think at this stage of my life, what's really interesting, candidly, is that some of the folks that I liked the least really set some examples for me in both ways, of how to comport myself going forward. And I find myself grateful for those opportunities almost as much as the ones where I thought the people were just fantastic. It's every part of it is something that you are taking away from. You just may not really realize it. And one of my biggest examples in my life was when I was in the hotel business. At 30, I was like, I got to get out of this business. This is a nightmare. I'm working too much. It's too hard and doesn't pay enough. And I thought I would never get back into that business. But the minute I needed in my life something that I really felt like I knew, there's that lodging business, and just came at it at a different angle. And now it's the core of, really the core of what I do. And had I not appreciated and paid attention to all of those mentorships throughout that process, I probably wouldn't have the grounding to do it, So I think those things are critical. I think it's so critical to pay attention to what's going on around you and those that you're working with. Even those that are working for you tend to teach you a lot.
Yeah, I really like that. And I think one thing you mentioned was, you don't necessarily have to like the person to take some good away. I've had some bosses that I didn't love personally, but yeah, it taught me a lot of good stuff. So love that. What about you, Christina?
Well, I think I also have not had a formal, coach, but again, also had some great mentors in my life. And I think, one of the biggest ones and a big influence for me was Phil Bryson, who you might know in Durango here. And he's great. I worked for him for 9 years. And again, just showing, like, leading by example and seeing how, he conducts his business and works with other people is really just, inspiration for me. And I think, the other thing when you go into that is, just, I was also reading, another book recently, and it was talking about how, with women in business, and how, you don't realize each day that you are, regardless of who you are, you're setting an example for someone, whether it's your child or your employee or how you're conducting yourself. And so, you really don't even know how many people are watching, how you behave, how you carry yourself, how you're responding to different situations. And so I think, in working with a lot of those folks in the past, you say, oh, that was a really great way to respond to that really intense situation, and I want to respond in that way, or vice versa, like you said, of learning like what not to do, and seeing other examples and saying like, okay, that definitely did not handle, that person did not handle that situation well, here's what I would do differently, and kind of keeping all those experiences with you, and taking the good and the bad, and blending how you want to present yourself moving forward. And it's a process, right? Learning process. Every day is something new. You never know what you're going to come across that day and how it's going to be handled. And you just try and do your best.
Yeah, that's awesome. Great answers. Okay, this one for me is a little tougher, and I actually changed the wording for it. So originally it was written as, what's the biggest mistake you've made that we can learn from? But we'll just call it, what's a learning opportunity that you've done that maybe you wouldn't repeat? So Christina yeah.
Oh,
Right.
no.
So Christina, yeah, you're up first. So
A learning opportunity. Well, it's interesting. I think, when I was serving in public office, I think, I wish, there have been definitely some learning opportunities and some other things that I would um, have done differently or taken more input and understood the context of why someone maybe is responding the way they were in certain circumstances. And so, there have definitely been instances where I replay, like, why did someone react that way? And I wish I would have known more of the background information on that. So I think, as far as a specific example, I think there's not really one that stands out, but I think just in general, things that I wish I would have done differently are really like understanding more of the context of a situation and getting some background information before moving into a decision or working towards a solution that I thought might be the best way, but not necessarily based on the history or other information that I didn't really gather appropriately prior to moving forward with something.
I think there's so much that our listeners can take from what you just said. So again, thank you for an awesome answer. My father-in-law gave me a book a couple of years ago, and I can't remember the name of it. We were driving, my wife and I could not turn it off. We got home and I was driving around the block to finish it. But the lesson in the book was very similar to what you said, was essentially put yourself in their shoes. And it's a lot easier said than done, of course. But if you can pause shortly and say, why are they reacting this way? Or why would they think like that? It's so different than what I'm thinking or how I would react. The response to that is so much more valuable. And so I appreciate you sharing that. And it's, again, much easier said than done. And I think it's similar with parenting. I mean, every day you can get better than you did the day before, and you never know what you're going to get. But it's a similar lesson. So I really appreciate you responding truthfully and honestly. All right, Chris, you're up.
Well, it just came to me when you were talking about public service, public office. Tomorrow is my last day of a city council run of 4 years.
Thank you, and congrats for your work. We'll say double congrats. That's really cool.
Yeah, but it also is the answer to your question. What should I have not done, or what did I regret doing in my life? And I always say this about it. Everybody in my family was like, "No, you shouldn't do that." People that knew me well were like, "I don't think you're gonna like it. It's not gonna be good for you." And I don't know if it's hubris. I don't know if it was just, I did want to serve the community. I mean, that was the goal behind it. But I think I could have listened more, at that time, and the commitment that I made to spend 4 years in a political office, which is probably not something super well aligned with my personality. And boy, I'm ready to be done. And I'm sure at the end, at some point in time, I'll know what the takeaways were that enhanced and improved my future life. But as it stands today, I think I would have been better off just chugging away at my other jobs, So
I think that you're going to find the takeaways of really learning, your skill set and a little bit more about, what makes you tick and how to bring very desperate positions and viewpoints together and help find some common ground.
I'm sure there'll be something, but for now, that's the answer to your question. So
it's still a little raw at the moment. Tomorrow's the last day. We'll give you a couple of months and come back to that. But no, I mean, I appreciate your honesty.
Dad, I love your dad.
Yeah, I love my dad too. Yeah. So for the listeners, they work together. So
yeah.
No, I mean, I really appreciate you being vulnerable and honest with that answer. I mean, sometimes that's it. Just say, you know what? Looking at it right now, it's hard to see the lesson. Probably wouldn't have done that. So that's the goal in this, is to be super honest. Okay. So this next one, we've done quite a bit of this, but I always ask this question. Do you have any mindset tips for someone starting out? And it doesn't have to be real estate. Maybe it's just starting a business, or maybe just starting a transition. But Chris, we'll let you go first. Do you have any mindset tips that can help our listeners?
Yeah, I think I alluded to it a little earlier. The reason that I started this company that now is really, the source of most of my income and probably my future, and will be at least my professional legacy, which is this lodging company, was really, at a really difficult time, circumstantially, financially, for the entire country, for almost all of us. And I think the mindset tip is to not fail to act in those moments. I think those are the times in life where you become innovative, and you have to. I mean, the have to kicks in, is like, what am I gonna do? I have to survive. But that's where the opportunity lies, is that, when things feel a little dark and you have to do something to survive that in some way, take advantage of that, because that's where you can really grow. And and if you're in business, then that's an opportunity. COVID is a great example in some ways. That I'm sure there are a lot of folks that, if they go into certain kinds of businesses that have been decimated over this last year, when we get through this, going to the restaurant business, for example, might be a great idea. I'm not saying that it will be, but it could be for them. That might be the germination of something really great for them in the future, but you wouldn't think it today. I think looking for those opportunities is where there could be a lot of gold to mine.
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge tip that you just gave, is don't necessarily wait. If action can be taken and you see a niche, and sometimes it's just, you have to, sometimes, Christine, you probably see this all the time, especially in the market now. I don't want to buy a house right now. The market's too hot.
Right.
Well, yeah, but you're going to sell your house and the market's hot, and that will sell too. I mean, and that's just one simple example, but the point is, I completely agree with what you're saying, Chris, and I appreciate you sharing, is take action, right? And then maybe look for the opportunity. I mean, that's a pretty tough time to start that particular business. So well done. Okay, Christina, what about you?
So as far as, mindset, we talked about it quite a bit, as just coming from that place of abundance and generosity, and really looking at how you can serve your customers and the community. And I think when you come from that place of abundance, like, it really is that, you pay it forward, and in what you put out, you get back. And so I really do think, I feel really strongly about that. And so, really saying, okay, what can you do from that? How can you serve the community? What can you do? And even just kind gestures, during the, each day, like, what can you do to help make somebody's day better? Saying hello to someone, or looking in the eye, or opening the door for someone, like, all those little things, I think, improve your life. They improve your attitude. And I think, when you are coming from a good place, that's when innovation happens, and that's when opportunities arise. And so I think, the more you can give out in the community, I think the more you will get back in spades. Like, really, I truly believe that.
Such a good tip. Thank you for sharing. I'm a huge fan of Brendon Burchard. He wrote High Performance Habits. I mean, he's a pretty famous guy, but one thing that he talks about in his book is, every time you go through a doorway, that's kind of his personal thing, is, how can I serve this room?
Mm-hmm.
And I tried that, you go in waves, right? I mean, you kind of forget, and I'm a jerk at times, just like everyone else, but that doorway mentality was kind of like, how can I serve this room, is so powerful. It's exactly what you just said, is it always comes back again. We've kind of circled back to that, is being a person that wants to give is so awesome. So I appreciate you saying that. Okay, so this one's tough. So Christina, you get ready. What is your definition of success?
Okay, definition of success. I think, when you can look in the mirror at yourself and feel like you've done your best. And, like, my grandfather always used to say, you're only as good as your word, basically, like, that's you come into this world with, that really nothing you leave with, that essentially. And so it's, so my definition of success is really feeling like you've served the community, you've served your friends, your family, and said, this is the best that I have done. And that you can look in the mirror and say, yes, I feel like, I'm an honest person. I care about things, in the world, in the community. And I think, when you look at that, it's really not, I mean, the monetary part, yes, that's great. That feels good when you aren't stressed about where your, mortgage payment is coming from, or whatever that might be. That's definitely something that, but I think success is really, feeling good about who you are in the community and who you show up as each day.
Very, very good response. Chris, what about you?
I have a very specific kind of sailboat with a helicopter pad It would no.
Let's learn more about this. Yeah, just kidding.
It's like a James Bond thing.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know.
I think, for me, honestly, I would rather be known as a good father, than a good business person. And I think that really is the core of how I feel about it, where it's your relationships with other people, and it's the people closest to you, the ones I think of just naturally, of course. But, I look at it just as something really simple. You're going to leave some legacy of who you were in life. And if I hope that somebody says, well, that person really acted with high integrity, that word is something that we use a lot in our business. And, it's not something that we just throw off casually. I think trying to live in a space where you're going to rise above your own selfish interests and really look at service to others as the primary goal, and those others meaning your family and your friends and your clients and all of the people that you impact in your life and your community. That would be the measure, and I might never get to get there because I might never hear it, but that's what I'm trying to seek, I think. And that would be the goal. And all the ancillaries, I think we all know, you can have financial success, and there's never enough of that. It doesn't ever really do a whole lot for you personally in your heart. It's those other things that really matter.
Such good responses to that question. So I appreciate you both. Normally what I do now is I ask you, why do you think you're successful when others aren't? And I think maybe I'll skip that question for you guys because it's kind of been self-explanatory throughout this podcast for me, and I'll relieve you of that particular hot seat. But I really do believe, this has been so good because you both are genuine and honest. And I know that because I've worked with you, and I can say what you're saying is true, right? And living the community, you hear that. So I'll just give you guys a little praise and say, well done. And I love those answers. And before I let you go, Chris, you want to plug your music? I know that's a passion of yours as well. So
yeah, let's completely digress and say that.
Well, I was like, you're really cool. You guys are good people. Let's talk about your music.
Yeah.
Very bad transition, but I'm happy.
I have this alter ego called Robert Kent Voss, which was my birth name. I was adopted, and that was the name on my birth certificate. So that's why we use that. But I've been pursuing that for most of my life, and it's been on the side, but it's been something that I love to do. I just got back from Nashville, recorded our third album, and you can get all that stuff on all the channels and all the Apple Music and Spotify's that you want to, and check it out. But it's kind of Americana and alt country and something I love to do. So thanks for letting me pitch it.
Yeah. So say it again, just in case, because sometimes, occasionally it cuts out. So
Robert Kent Voss.
Robert Kent Voss. I love it. All right.
Yeah.
Well, our listeners will go out and check it out. So
check it out.
Awesome. Well, how can people get in touch with you both? Any way that works the best for them to reach you?
Sure. So our website kind of has everything, durangolandandhomes.com, and we have a little profile there, and you can click and contact each of us there and learn about our office staff. We have an amazing office crew, and Riley, our office dog, is on there too. She has a little profile picture, and so that's probably the best way to get a hold of us.
Or premiervacationrentalgroup.com. That's another option for getting a hold of our team there too. So. Yep. All
right. Well, this has been an amazing episode. Our listeners have so much to take from this. I really appreciate both your time. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks a lot, Eric.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, good to see you, man.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Real Estate Mindset Podcast. If you've enjoyed the content today, please follow this show wherever you listen to podcasts. And don't forget to head over to wildoakcapital.com for more information or to connect with Eric directly. Please take a moment to leave a review or tell a friend about what you've listened to today. We hope you'll tune in again soon.